folks, I was not the brightest bulb in the pack. I'm seeing students coming out that want my job now.
Wow.
Do what you say when you say you're going to do it. Without integrity, you have nothing.
Hi everyone, welcome to Probe with a Mic. Today we're gonna watch an interview with a chief legal officer. 20 questions with a person with over 20 years of experience in legal industry. We'll watch this interview not alone. We're gonna watch it together with Rachel.
Hi everyone.
Rachel gonna start her law school this fall. So if you wanna know more how to become a successful lawyer, what is it like to be a lawyer, and you also wanna see Rachel's reactions to all of this, then keep watching this video. I'm sure you're gonna love it. So my name is Nina, and today is Rachel. Rachel's gonna start her law school this fall, right?
Yes.
Why have you decided to study law?
So I am a finance major, and then after doing a couple internships, I wanted something that was more like hands-on and helping people. So I'm gonna take my finance degree and then do something in business law.
Well, my name is Mark Smolik. I serve as a Chief Legal and Compliance Officer for DHL Supply Chain in the Americas. I have the privilege of leading a team of 60 people in 7 different countries. We handle the legal, compliance, and commercial contract work. We move product for most of the Fortune 500 companies. I've been with the organization not quite 10 years.
How do you imagine, what are main job duties that Chief Legal Officer does?
So I would imagine that he's at DHL dealing with like any like lawsuits that they have with like their employees. So he's like kind of overseeing that and then managing like all the lower attorneys that are under him.
My main duties, first and foremost, if I look at my day as 100% of my time, 40%, if not 45%, is just spent on management issues tied to the department. It could be everything from team reviews and individual employees reviews, sitting down and talking to people about their career development, developing their own network, or maybe even just helping with projects. I don't have the opportunity to get too deep into the issues. That's why I've got subject matter experts with whom I work. But I would equate it to more of a macroeconomic as opposed to a micro. I'm pretty high level with regard to what I do, and I find that with most generals counsel, spread out among many projects throughout the entire department.
So I think you were almost right,
yeah.
right? That he's overseeing everyone. Yeah.
Right.
Like, why do you think you want to be a lawyer? What is it that you would love in studying law?
I guess it's just like solving problems. It's hands-on, and then you can see the problems you're fixing and seeing the results.
But what I enjoy most about my job is the people with whom I work. Oftentimes people, they don't feel valued. If they don't feel that there's good and adequate communication, they'll leave an employee. I don't have that here. The moments of work that make me the proudest are when I open up an email or I get a phone call from somebody, as I did this morning, complimenting somebody on my team for a job well done. Especially if you've had some influence in working with them on developing a presentation, maybe giving them a little guidance with regard to how they do what they do. The more that you leverage your team and you let them shine, the more reflection is on you as a leader. And that's a pretty good feeling.
So what do you think is something that one would learn over 10 or 20 years of his career?
Well, I know in the legal profession, writing is like the #1 skill. So that's what I hope to like work on most in like the beginning of my career. So then one day that comes easy. And then obviously because he's just like managing just interactions with people and like how to better handle those situations.
When I got out of law school, I knew a lot about theory. Now I know a lot about practice, the inner workings of a corporation. Clients are going to you like they're going to the doctor. Here's my problem. How do you address it? How do you fix it? And oftentimes, much like in medicine, there's no black and white answer in the law. So you've got to draw on your experience to come up with the best guidance that you can.
He's gonna talk about writing later, actually. That's how
I just think that I mean, he's like, that's this high, like he's like the most high up in a company. So it's hard when you're just starting out to think like that could be me one day, and to see like your skills change and like the things you do day to day is completely different.
What do you think can be very stressful if you are a lawyer?
I mean, obviously, like any lawsuits that the companies faced, I mean, that influences, like, if people want to come work there, if you have, like, discrimination situations. So, I mean, I feel like there's so many different things that could cause issues in your company.
One of the most stressful situations I've had in my legal career involved being a member of a team where we were doing an acquisition for a company with whom I worked. And we were in Chicago. We were purchasing a very, very large division of an international conglomerate company. And we were one of 4 buyers. This company was being split up. We were in a very, very large law firm conference rooms. We came in on a Monday morning. We left on a Friday morning and never went to bed. The negotiations were long, they were intense. Ultimately, at the end of the day, with lack of sleep, some pretty bad conference room food, we were able to get done what we set out to accomplish, but the stress associated with that was almost beyond manageable. Your people are perhaps your most valuable resource, and you have to leverage them and understand what their limitations are. And putting somebody through 5 days of no sleep might accomplish your end, but it surely doesn't do very much for your employees.
Wow. I mean, I think that's what I've been told, is that expect to put in really long hours, especially in the beginning of your career. So that's something that like I'm prepared for, and I think anyone going into a legal career should expect in the beginning of their career to like work long hours and long nights.
Yeah, I was very impressed, like 5 days with no sleep. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I guess you know the answer.
Yeah, so actually when I've been applying, some people are shocked that I'm a finance major. So a lot of times you're either like psych or communications and then you go into it. But because I know that I want to do business law, it makes sense that I have like a business background. But I wouldn't say that's the most common.
The type of education somebody should pursue if they want to work in the law, whether outside counsel or whether inside counsel, is one that quite candidly interests them the most. 30 years ago, going into law school, everybody said political science is the way to go. And if it wasn't political science, it was history, or maybe it was English. But unlike other professionals, such as dentists, who can come out and on day one do something meaningful, they can fill a tooth. When I got out of law school, I didn't even know where the courthouse was. I didn't know how to file a brief, what I needed to do to file a brief. My advice to anybody pursuing a legal career, write as much as you can. There's a great deal of the bar exam that is still the written word. Take as many philosophy classes as you can that push critical thinking. One of the ways people can improve their writing skills is to think of a relatively simple concept. When you are seeking to make a point, never forget what I call the hook. What is it that you want to convey? Take the time before you put pen, paper to pencil, or typing on that keyboard to think about what is the most important message that I want to communicate. It never ceased to amaze me when I was teaching the bar review courses, how many students would read the question and immediately jump right into writing an answer. If you take the time to really think through what you want to communicate, you'll find that the arguments that flow are much easier.
Yeah, that's definitely true from what I've heard. I actually just ordered 2 books to read this summer because when I was talking to a recruiter, he said that you're probably like downside going into law school is like business courses don't have a lot of writing. Or if it is writing, it's like short and sweet and like memos. So he gave me a couple book recommendations to read this summer to like improve on like my critical thinking and to help when I take exams in law school.
Guys, if you love watching this, I would recommend you to subscribe to this channel. Every week I will post a video with a new professional. So if you want to figure out what you want to do in life, that's the best way for you to do it, is to subscribe to this. And also send the link to all of your friends who are searching and figure out what to do. Let's help them to figure out their future. Let's make the world a better place.
probably just be a team player. You're obviously working with like many different people in different positions, so I would say like working with others.
The most important qualities to succeed, not just in my job, in any job, is do what you say when you say you're going to do it. You see, people will judge you based on the words that come out of your mouth and your actions. But at the end of the day, the best way that you can gain confidence and trust with somebody is to do what you say, number one. The other qualities that I think are most important is without integrity, you have nothing. You won't have trust, you won't have confidence, etc. You have to exude that integrity. That comes from your personality. That comes from aligning and understanding what expectations are. It is not treating the CEO any different than you might treat the most junior person in the organization. One of the other qualities that I think that is most important is an unwavering commitment to help people and to help the client.
I think that's like really interesting how he says, do what you say. I guess I've always been told that in like just internships. It's don't commit to someone and say like, oh, I'll get that to you by the end of the day, and like it's 3 days later and like they're like, where is it at? Because it's just, that's like your first impression of like who I am as a worker, and you don't want that to be how people think of you, that you always like make promises and you can't keep them. So I think that is a really important one.
Yeah, in any job you always have deadlines, and yeah, if you don't commit to the deadline, people cannot trust you and they would choose another employee to give that job, who they know will do it on time.
Yeah, stress, and then probably just managing others. I mean, that's...
The aspect of my job that I enjoy the least is the travel. I have been on an airplane for collectively years, millions and millions of miles. My kids were growing up and I was in Brazil. It was tough to listen to a piano recital. So there's a balance that you have to need to make in life. The other thing that is perhaps most challenging is when somebody with whom you have worked for so long violates their own integrity. They do something that you just say, what in the world were you thinking? It's tough to sit down with somebody like that. And that's just the human side of it. Travel,
that's always, I think, someone's fear is like when you're single and just young, it's like, okay, I can travel all I want. And then like you settle down, and to think that like I would miss my kids or like not being with like my partner, like that's always a fear. But I think that's in any career, not like specific to a legal career.
I mean, I guess because he works for DHL, which is this large international company, and he manages legal department, which spans over several countries. So he has to go there.
Moving.
Yeah.
So when he talked about violating integrity, like I watch all like these shows that are all like legal shows, and they all have that. And then I was thinking to myself the other day, I hope like I'm not that type of person. I'm not that type of person that like, you know, like hide some evidence or something to like protect someone. And I think that's kind of what he's getting at. And I think if you just stay true to yourself and like your values, that doesn't happen to you. But like to sit in the same room with someone that has done that, I mean, that would be extremely challenging.
Yeah, I asked him to give examples of those, but I mean, he cannot do that.
Can't.
Yeah, so it's gonna
disclose
be
that.
Yeah. So especially if you're a lawyer, so. I guess what is the starting position that one would start like after the college, after the law school?
As like just the bottom level associate. I guess like, I think my goal would be like partner at a law firm or like his position in a company.
How long does it take to become a partner?
So I just met with someone and he's partner at Thompson & Hein, and he's like my dad's age, so like 50.
What are the steps to get to the partner after the law school?
I don't know like exactly. I haven't like looked into it. Mm-hmm. Like I would assume that it would be similar to like any career, and like you have to like do your time like couple years before you can like advance. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely like a long process to get there.
Like 20 years, 15 years?
Probably.
Yeah. But you want to specialize in business
yes.
law? Okay. What is it that business law is like? Corporations, what kind of legal issues they deal with?
So you can do M&A issues, like if I was going to acquire a company, or if like a company that I represented was going to acquire a company, like looking at that company's, just like the issues that they've had. Like you don't want to acquire a company that's had like discrimination issues, or like their labor contracts and stuff are different, because it wouldn't be like an easy integration. So I think I want to do labor and employment law, and that's probably why I've talked about it a couple times now. So just dealing with issues that like employees have within the company.
Some of the factors that determine how fast somebody can grow in their career go slow to go fast. I've seen many people in their career come into their career and try to fast track through it, and it never works. I'm seeing students coming out that want my job now, understanding they're not going to get it now. There is a process that you have to go through. There is a learning curve you have to go through. There's experience you have to go through.
Yeah, that's exactly what you said. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very cool that you already understand this now.
Yeah, you definitely, like, you have to put in your time in doing like the legal research and the writing and all the stuff that's not as like higher level thinking, and just putting your time in and like understanding like the foundation before you can get to like the point where you can manage others and like look at like big picture issues. I'd imagine it's extremely important, just being extremely professional.
But if you think you've done several internships,
yes.
Right? Like, did you feel that in different internships, the culture, environment was different?
Yeah, so I actually interned at DHL. The culture there is, I mean, it's professional, it's get your work done. I mean, it's at least my manager was like laid back. It's a casual dress. It's just a different atmosphere for the company. And then I'd assume if you're at like a bank, it'd be a little more like buttoned up and like more professional. I mean, I loved my experience at DHL. It's what I would look for in a company, like at a law firm too. But I'd assume that law firms are extremely professional, and I haven't done any internships there.
When it comes to evaluating the environment, you have to be honest with yourself and ask, is this job a means to an end? Am I going to be here for 2 years or 3 years as a stepping stone to get on to something different? If the answer to that question is yes, then culture is not as important. Experience is. You can pick any of the very, very largest law firms anywhere in the world and get some wonderful experience. If what you're looking for, whether it's job 1, 2, or 3, is a place to stay and to hang your hat for a period of time, my advice to you is focus most on the culture than anything else.
I think that's a really good point. I mean, nowadays I feel like most people don't stay at the same company for like their entire career. So if it's a good company that has a good reputation, then you can put in a couple years and get the experience. But if they don't have like the work-life balance that you want like the options to like not travel, but you know at that company you're going to be like locked into that, then like find a company down the road that like fits that for you. Cybersecurity, I think, for all industries is always an issue, but I was just at a law firm visiting, and he was talking to me about just like emails that they receive, and they go through trainings on like what not to open for like phishing issues, and they get like thousands of emails a day of people trying to like hack into their systems.
When it comes to making evaluations with regard to the future of the legal industry, law firms are under considerable strain. They provide a phenomenal service, but at price points that more and more clients cannot continue to pay. I personally won't pay somebody $800 or $900 an hour, thinking what is that cost going to be 5 or 10 years from now? It's not a sustainable business model. It is why more and more alternative legal service providers, companies like Elevate or Thomson Reuters or Wolters Kluwer, are developing alternative ways of providing legal services. They've got the technology, they've got the apps, they've got the people, they've got the lawyers that are doing what they need to do that might be being paid $50 an hour, not $500 an hour, and yet the output is the same. It's creating a dynamic opportunity for people coming out of law school.
I guess I've never really thought about that, or really knew that that was even kind of going on.
I mean, my limited knowledge about the US is that, yeah, the legal services are very expensive,
yes,
and people cannot afford it, especially, you know, those who don't earn much.
Like from my hometown, Canfield, Ohio. So it's a really small town. So I think that it's easier to have like a smaller practice there. I would definitely say that you don't obviously start out like that. You have to work for law firms and then like eventually like build up your like reputation, and then you could get there if you wanted to.
There are opportunities for self-employment. It's a bit rare. Of all of the people that I went to law school with, over 200 that graduated my class, only one went out on his own and is still on his own today. Unless you have worked in an environment where you naturally have attracted clients who want to use you early on, which is kind of tough when you get out of school and you're 25 or 26 years old, it's going to be a struggle. I've seen it work with some people who might have been in sales for 10 years and then went to law school, got out, and people become clients.
It's exactly what you said.
It's hard.
Yeah, to get clients, how to get clients, Anything you know about lawyers that is surprising for people in finance?
No, I don't know.
No? Okay, let's hear what you said.
One of the things that people would find most surprising about the role of a general counsel or chief compliance officer is we don't make decisions in a vacuum or on an island. I am making a recommendation, but I am conferring with multiple people in the company. I'm talking to my CFO. If it's a significant enough issue, I'll talk to my CEO.
And from his perspective.
Right.
But
No, I do know, like, when you work, like, at a company, you do work across, like, finance, accounting, like, you do work, like, cross-sectionally, which I think would be different in a law firm, but you do, like, reach out to different people.
Do you already have people now asking you some advice?
I have my friends being like, will you help me down the road? Like, can I count you in? No, I don't think I can't really give advice right now. I mean, I do give a lot of advice to people that are thinking about, like, applying to school, and, like, my thought process and picking a school and, like, the applications and everything, and, like, how to study for the LSAT. So I've helped, like, a lot of my friends with that.
It happens more frequently than you would think, especially as you get a little bit older in your career, or perhaps more advanced in your career, where people will ask you for legal advice. It could be help in drafting a will. I mean, there have been a couple of instances where I've actually handled trials for some people that have been involved in automobile accidents or maybe some other disputes where they don't have the money to otherwise pay a lawyer. And that's part of the giving the back proposition.
Yeah, I caught it, but he helped, like, a lot of people outside, especially those who cannot afford it.
Right.
And I mean, I guess when you're, you have so much experience, you have someone who asks you for help, like, how can you say no? So.
Right. Maybe chief legal officer is, like, a step above general counsel. That's my guess. I kind of, like, group it all together, and I don't know.
I actually had no idea. This is one of the most Googled questions about that, so that's why.
There really isn't any difference. In some very large organizations, take Cardinal Health, for example, they have a chief legal officer. And reporting to the chief legal officer will be general counsel of various business units. At the end of the day, the chief legal officer is the one who has responsibility for the entire legal department. But it's a rarity.
What do you think he would be grateful?
Probably just helping people. I mean, like, he's talked a lot about how he's loved the people he works with and how he has helped people that, like, couldn't afford. So, like, just being able to give back and help people.
The thing I am most grateful for is the way in which I grew up, which was in a very caring and loving environment where we didn't have a lot, but if you wanted something, you went out and got it. You earned your way to get it. The other thing that I am most grateful for is my wife and my 2 kids, because they have been the cornerstone of everything that I do. I've known my wife since May 12th, 1982. She is perhaps the best sounding board for anything that I have going on.
That was a long process, so I actually didn't figure it out until, like, junior year of college. So I think that's later for most people. A lot of people, like, grow up, like, if their parents are a lawyer, they, like, know they want to do it. My dad is a lawyer, but he does not practice, so it's a little, like, unique. He's a CPA, so he does more, like, finance and accounting. But after doing internships, I realized that I wanted, like, the people aspect in my career and wanted to, like, solve problems like that and, like, more of a hands-on environment than, like, a finance job.
Well, when I realized I wanted to do something related to law and compliance, If I could be just brutally honest with you, I never wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a doctor. That's the truth. I got to undergrad and I majored in political science and communications. And the chairperson of the political science department said, "You're never going to make it to law school." My grades in the sciences weren't all that great. Folks, I was not the brightest bulb in the pack when it comes to academic achievement. But give me a problem to solve and I'd solve it. By the time I was midway through my sophomore year, my grades had improved pretty significantly, and the chair of the political science group said, "You ought to be a lawyer." She was, and that was it.
I actually was very surprised when he said that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super interesting that he like jumped like significant like different careers like doctor, lawyer, but
it's also amazes me like how other people have a large impact on what do you become like this. Actually, yeah, for me it was the moment when I was presenting something when I was third year in my undergrad, and someone told me, if you present like that, you should do it more often. You maybe should be a teacher or a professor. And I never before thought about that. And then that was first time I started thinking about that. And maybe without that person saying that, I wouldn't be doing what I do right now.
Yeah.
How did your dad?
Oh, they're excited. My dad wants me to go to school where he went, but I don't think that's gonna happen.
Where did he go to?
He went to Case in Cleveland. So yeah, I have not picked my school. I have 15 days.
15 days.
Yeah.
The reaction I got from my parents when I told them I wanted to be a lawyer was secondary, because I first told my grandmother, and she said, "Oh no, please don't." She grew up through the poverty and through the depression and never had a good image of lawyers. But she said, "What about the doctor?" And I said, "It's not going to happen. But being a lawyer is something that I'm intrigued by." She never looked back. My parents were happy. I was the first in my family anywhere to go to school beyond college.
My parents, because I've put the work into study and applied to 12 schools, and it's a lot of work, and law school is not easy, so you need to really want to do it. It can't just be someone told me this might be a good career path for me. It's hard, and first year of law school, from what I've heard, is miserable. But after that, it gets a little bit easier, but you need to really want to do it. I've put all the work in by myself. My parents didn't go on the visits with me. So I think that really shows that I want to do this, and this is the career path that I want.
Well, what motivated me to go first to college and then ultimately to law school was just my own internal burning desire. I was one of 5 kids. We didn't grow up with a lot. If you had $3, you had a lot of money. Going to college was a challenge. I had to pay for it on my own. 100% of the college tuition I had to pay for it. So I worked pretty hard as a carpenter for a construction company, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved creating things, working on or building houses, and I thought about making a career out of it. But when I looked around at some of the guys who were working construction that are my age now, back then, when I was 18, 19, I said, there's no way I want to do this. I applied to a number of colleges, ultimately was accepted, decided I wanted to stay local, went to John Carroll University, continued to work construction, and did that through law school. And then had a critical decision to make, because I had built up a pretty decent-sized construction company on my own that was bringing in a number of new projects, new jobs, bringing in a fair amount of revenue. And the decision was, do I continue to do this or do I go to law school? And ultimately, cooler minds prevailed, and I decided to go the law school route. But it was also with the advice of a lot of guys that I had met in the construction who said, go to law school. Ironically, a lot of those guys became clients after I graduated and went on to the law firm. But I've enjoyed it ever since.
Yeah, no, I think that's interesting that he did construction. My little brother actually does that, and he didn't want to go to college, and we told him that he should go get a degree so then one day he could have his own business or something, and he could make a career on it, so he's not always doing manual labor and stuff. So I think that's kind of what he was getting at, that to think to do construction his entire life, long term, wasn't what he wanted and what other people were telling him to go to school.
When I applied for jobs at some of the law firms when I was still in school, I got to be candid. There were a number of the law firms that said, thank you very much, and I received a letter in the mail, but they weren't interested. I was pretty high up in my class, but I was not top 10%. I ultimately went to work for a firm that handled a lot of real estate and construction work. And it was perfect because it was exactly what I was doing, working my way through undergraduate and law school.
Yeah, so I know that it's like stressed that if you want to work at like a top law firm, you need to be top in your class, you need to be top 10%. So like there's a lot of pressure on your grades to get that like first job. And when I was talking to a recruiter at a law firm, he was basically saying how much your GPA matters, and not as much. I mean, this is how he viewed it, but like some of like the organizations you can be in law school and stuff. He's like, if I had someone that had like a 3.8 or I had someone that had like a 3.5 and was super involved, it's almost like grades kind of trump it. So.
What about application process? Is it like you apply to 20 jobs after the graduation? Do you know?
You're going to intern after your second year of law school, and then hopefully that would like lead into your first job. Just kind of how I think that's how it was for me for undergrad. I interned my junior year, and then I got a full-time offer for after my senior year. So I think that's pretty common.
And what does it take to start law school? What did you have to submit?
Oh, yeah, that application process is very extensive. So there's like one form you can fill out, but then like each school has like separate requirements too. So it's kind of just like applying for undergrad again with like the Common App. So there is a Common App, but then each school has like supplemental like essays that you can write for them. So it's definitely a process. I would recommend applying to like 6 schools, not 12, because when like 12 was a lot of work for me.
You had to write separate essay for every...
Yeah, so there's like, I could submit some of the essays to multiple schools and like change up a couple of things, but every single school had like smaller like blurbs to write and stuff that's like 500 characters, 1,000 characters. So it just gets to be a lot.
Do you have a hobby?
Ooh, hobby, working out.
Working out.
Yeah.
Well, my hobbies outside work, not surprisingly, involve woodworking. Over the course of the past almost 40 years, I've become a pretty good carpenter, much of which I donate to people, some in the military or what have you. There are similarities between the carpentry work that I do or in being a lawyer. First and foremost, you've got a product or a service that you're providing to somebody, and you have the goal or the desire to provide the best that you could. Now, when it comes to being a carpenter, it is providing a bedroom set, as I did for somebody, or a kitchen table that is one of the nicest that they have seen. As a lawyer, you're doing something different. You don't oftentimes have a physical product. It is more insight or advice that guides them to certain conclusions or solves problems. But at the end of the day, you're delivering something of value to somebody.
I love this analogy when he said like with his carpenter work and a lawyer.
Yeah, that's a really good analogy.
You should consider getting into my profession if you are passionate about helping people. It is exceptionally gratifying, especially if they don't have the means to necessarily address things on their own, but they're turning to you to help fix a problem. And the more that you can relate to them, not only personally, but emotionally, doing so in a way that financially is reasonable for them, the more self-gratification you're going to get out of it.
That's exactly what you said before, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what I didn't find in my like finance jobs and what I felt like I could find in like a legal career. I would say if you're not fully committed to like applying yourself in 3 more years of school, like you just did 4 years of school, and to know like I'm going straight through, so like mentally thinking like I went to school for 7 years is a lot of people like work and then they'll go back to school, but I mean it's not like easy to get through law school.
You should not consider getting into my profession if all you want to do is make money and make it quickly. You're not going to do it early on.
Yeah, making money.
I definitely think that's true. I mean, I've looked at like starting salaries after law school, and it's very similar to starting salaries out of like undergrad that I've seen.
It's like 70K.
Yeah. So, and like you think 3 more years of school, it's going to get me so much more money, but it's like pretty equivalent. It's just eventually your career, you will make the money. So you have to, like, it's more of like a long-term investment. But I think that's what higher education is.
Yeah, it's not like out of the school you come out and
boom.
yeah, boom, yeah, all the money, hello. Yeah.
For those of you who may be watching this, who are wondering, how do I achieve a general counsel position, a chief legal officer position, maybe a chief compliance position in any legal department? Folks, I wasn't the brightest bulb in the bunch when it came to my schoolwork. I didn't come from a lot. But if there is one thing that I had and still have, it is an uncompromising work ethic, and more importantly, a degree of integrity that has never tarnished. Network with people who can open up opportunities that will provide you a path to this position. Network, network, network. And I can't tell you how important that is. If you happen to go to a conference and hear a speaker and might be a little intimidated about approaching him or her afterwards and just thanking them and perhaps asking them for their contact information or connecting with them on social media, you're missing an opportunity. I was fortunate enough to be presented with this opportunity because of a member of my network who contacted me over 10 years ago about this job. And the same is true for my job at SafeLight. Never forget that you're selling a service. That service is the knowledge that you have, but it is how you present that knowledge in a confident, rational, easy to understood manner that is really going to set you apart from anybody else. I wish you all the best as you continue to develop your careers. If any of you do want to connect with me on LinkedIn or through other social media, I'd encourage you to do so.
I'm definitely going to connect with him now.
What part of this interview have you found most interesting?
I didn't really, like what's like most stressful to him and like what he likes most about his career. I think that's always helpful to hear, to see if that's like a fitting for you. If you would find like what he feels is like rewarding, if that's rewarding to you too. I try to do that. I talk to a lot of like working lawyers to see if like their interest in what they're doing is something I could see myself like long-term being happy with.
Comment below what you found most interesting in this video. I will feature the best comments in the future videos. And once again, please subscribe to this channel and let the world know about being able to learn more about professionals. Thank you for watching Prof with a Mic, and all the best to you in the future. Bye-bye.